Welcome back, math friends. So in a previous lesson, we have talked about adding rational numbers, we've talked about subtracting rational numbers, and we've done a lot of work with integers. So that's positive and negative numbers that are no decimal, no fraction. So today we're going to practice a little bit more of that, but we're also going to practice with those decimals and those fractions. So remember, adding rational numbers with the same sign. That's how many of positive or how many negatives do I have. So we're going to make sure that we add those numbers and keep our sign. When we have different signs, we have to figure out the difference between the two numbers. So 8 plus negative 5, we take the difference or subtract the larger minus the smaller, and then we have to keep the sign of the bigger digit or the bigger number. So for this example, 8 is bigger than 5, therefore it's going to stay positive. So subtract, keep the sign. Then we learned about subtracting rational numbers. So we're going to add the opposite. So remember, the first number does not change. Then you change minus to a plus and you change to the opposite of whatever the second number is. So you add the opposite, okay? And then you just follow your addition rules if they're the same sign or a different sign. So we haven't talked about this too much, but I just want to remind us, adding and subtracting decimals, we have to make sure that we line the decimals up. So that means if I have 4.2 plus 3.5, I'm going to make sure that I line my decimals up. What if I had 4.35 and 3.5? I still need to make sure I line my decimals up. Even though the fives are the same, I have to make sure my decimals line up, okay? Then you would add or subtract normally and just keep your decimal in the same line. For fractions, we're going to find a common denominator and then add or subtract our numerators. So our denominator won't change once we add or subtract. So the example I have here, 3/4 plus 1/3. We have to figure out a number that is a common multiple of 4 and 3. So I could do two things. I could list out my multiples of 4 and 3. I get 4, 8, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12. I know that 12 is the least common multiple. Or another easy way to do this is multiply the two numbers and you get 12 for that too. Sometimes there's a smaller least common multiple. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4, figure out what I do to get to 12. Well, I multiply by 3. If I do it on the bottom, I have to do it on the top. So 4 times 3 as my denominator gives me 12. 3 times 3 gives me 9 as my numerator. 3 times 4 over here gives me 12, so 1 times 4 gives me 4. Then I add my numerator, keep the denominator the same. Okay, so I hope that helps. Same with subtracting, no different, common denominator, add or subtract the numerator, denominator doesn't change. So let's review quickly these examples. So we have 7 plus negative 12. So, 7 plus negative 12. Are these the same sign or a different sign? They're a different sign. So I know that I'm going to subtract 12 minus 7 is equal to 5. And which digit is bigger, 7 or 12? 12. So negative 5. Okay, let's look at this next one. 12 minus negative 6. That's a subtraction problem with negatives. So I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to rewrite it, keep the first number the same, minus to it, addition, add the opposite. What's the opposite of negative 6? Positive 6. So what's 12 plus 6? 18. All right? 8.79 plus negative 6.41. This is addition. They are different signs. So I'm going to subtract. You got it. So 8.79 is bigger. I'm going to subtract 6.41. Remember, keep your decimals lined up. 9 minus 1 is 8. 7 minus 4 is 3. 8 minus 6 is 2. But I'm forgetting something. I need my decimal. Pull that decimal down. Now look at your numbers. Don't forget to look at your numbers again. Which digit is bigger, 8.79 or 6.41? Well, 8 is clearly bigger, and it's going to stay positive because 8.79 is positive. Now we have a subtraction problem. Negative 12.32 minus 28.91. Again, subtraction. Add the opposite. So I'm going to keep the first number the same, add instead of subtract, and I'm going to do the opposite of positive 28.91 is negative 28.91. Now I have two negative numbers. What do I do when I'm adding and they're the same sign? You add the numbers. 12.32, 28.91, and I'm adding. Remember, keep your decimals lined up. 2 plus 1 is 3. 9 plus 3 is 12. Remember to carry that 10. 2 plus 8 is 10. That makes 11. Carry that 1. 1 plus 1 plus 2 is 4. And then I'm pulling my decimal down here. And they're negative, so I put that negative in front. Okay? Now moving on to fractions, we have to find a common denominator here. So I like to rewrite my fractions underneath the original ones because it helps keep everything in order. So what is a common denominator between 2 and 6? Well, I know that 6 is a multiple of 2, so I'm going to use 6 as my common denominator. I don't need to do anything to this fraction over here because it's going to stay the same. But 1/2, 2 times 3 gives me 6. So I'm going to do 1 times 3. And now I have common denominator. So negative 3/6 plus negative 1/6, same sign, add, keep the sign. So 3 plus 1 is 4. You only add your numerators and you keep your denominator the same. So our answer is negative 4/6. Now let's move on to this subtraction. Remember subtraction, we add the opposite. So I'm going to add, and the opposite of negative 7/6 is positive 7/6. Well, now I'm just adding two positive fractions. Wonderful. But I don't have a common denominator. I have to find one. So let's check. I know that a multiple of 4 is 12, and I know that a multiple of 6 is 12. So I'm going to use 12 as my common denominator. I know that 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 3 gives me 9. I know that 6 times 2 is 12, so 7 times 2 is 14. Remember, your denominator does not change, and you add your numerator. So 9 plus 14 is going to give us 23. So our answer is 23/12. Okay? So always remember, when you're adding and they're the same sign, you add and then keep the sign. If they are different signs, you're going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. And then for subtraction, we're going to add the opposite. So you're going to practice this today, and you're going to take a quiz on this tomorrow. So if you don't understand, please let me know, and I'll be glad to help you.